We got our first look at the post-deadline Orioles this weekend in Chicago. And while it certainly wasn't terrible, it wasn't exactly great either, as the O's dropped the series to the Cubs. I'll recap all three games coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Monday, August 4th, 2025, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb. And coming up on today's episode, we are going to recap the Orioles series loss to the Chicago Cubs on the north side of Chicago this weekend, dropping 2 games out of 3 to one of the better teams in the National League. I'll recap the Friday loss in which Trevor Rogers was incredible once again, but the Orioles didn't score, and that's why they lost. We'll talk about the awesome 8th inning comeback that got the Orioles their one win of the weekend on Saturday, and then the O's coming oh so close with some unlikely heroes on Sunday, but a painful walk-off loss to end the series. But that's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. Go to 5hourenergy.com today and use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. Only valid through September 30th. Order transfusion-flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. So the Orioles coming off the deadline, they had the off day on Thursday. They end up trading 6 major league players within the last 24 hours before the deadline. Overall, 9 big leaguers were traded away in the month leading up to the deadline from this Orioles team. It looks very different. And, we discussed it on the Thursday Deadline Live show. Thank you all for tuning into that one. Discussed it on the Friday episode when I talked about how this Orioles roster is going to look different down the stretch on why the Orioles did what they did at the deadline, what it means for the final 2 months this year, and more importantly, what it means for 2026 and beyond in Baltimore, and talked about how this is not a rebuild. This is a retool. The Orioles are looking to be a winning ball club again next year, but it's going to be tough at times down the stretch. And I think the big positive to take out of this weekend is that the Orioles had a legitimate shot and could have easily won all 3 of these games against the Chicago Cubs, which have been one of the best teams in the National League. They look like a serious World Series contender this year, and the O's won only 1 of 3, but could have easily won all 3. The flip side is there are now more glaring issues on this Orioles roster than there were 4 days ago, and that's going to be even more of an issue. As we know this team is out of it, but going to become even more of an issue as we go down the stretch. So let's talk about the Friday game. Final score from that one in the opener in this series: Cubs 1, Orioles nothing. Your classic 1-0 ball game, a pitcher's duel in Chicago. What went right from that one? Well, Trevor Rogers was truly incredible once again. He is just truly incredible right now. Rogers, another 8-inning start in this one as he goes out there and allows just 1 run on 4 hits over 8 innings, 8 strikeouts, no walks, just 88 pitches thrown. He now has a 1.44 ERA with the Orioles this season. Again, 1.44 ERA in his 9 starts this year. He has just been absurd. And quite frankly, if the O's had the game tied, if they had the lead, at 88 pitches and the way he was throwing the ball, there's a chance Trevor Rogers might have gotten the baseball in the bottom of the 9th inning. If the O's had a substantial lead, he would have easily gone out there. If it was 1-1, 2-1, 3-1 Orioles, whatever it may be, there's still a shot. Tony Mansolino lets him run back out there because he was so efficient, so dominant, and at only 88 pitches. That's how good he was. And he was just pounding the strike zone. A 67% in-zone rate. 2/3 of his 88 pitches ended up in the strike zone. 3/4 of his 4-seam fastballs were in the strike zone. That pitch just had great life, good velocity, didn't walk anyone. Not only did he not walk anyone, right, and the command's been good all year. That's one of the big reasons why Rogers has been so much better this year than he was in 2024. But it's not only no walks, he didn't even have a 3-ball count. There was not a batter he even got to 3-2 against. Never even close to a walk. Only 4 2-ball counts in the entire game. Rogers faced 28 Cubs hitters in this one. Only 4 of them even had more than 1 ball in the count. That is how much Rogers was filling up the strike zone. And sometimes, as we've seen at times with, guys like Tomoyuki Sugano, or you look a little further back, like this was a Cole Irvin problem in the past. If you throw too many strikes and you don't have that dominant in-zone stuff, too many strikes can be an issue, right? You can throw 70% strikes and be hit hard because you're just throwing too many hittable pitches. Except Rogers' stuff is good. These are quality strikes, and he gets away with a 67% in-zone rate, only 4 2-ball counts, and throws 8 innings of 1-run ball against one of the better offenses in Major League Baseball this year. His stuff is playing up in the zone. His command is elite, and it's hard to get to him. And I really like the way his changeup was moving. We've talked a lot about the fastball and the sweeper he's thrown, but he got a left-on-left changeup against Kyle Tucker in Friday's game. And listen, like the 1 run he allowed was on a sac fly in the bottom of the 2nd inning. And it was not a super far hit ball. It was pretty shallow in right field. And Carson Kelly, the catcher, was running from 3rd. And Tyler O'Neill has a good arm. If O'Neill makes a slightly more accurate throw to home plate, there's a chance the Orioles get the out at home to end the inning. And Rogers could be still throwing a shutout in this one. Like that was the razor thin margins of the Cubs even scratching across 1 run. And his season, remember, he gets called up on May 24th to start 1 game of that doubleheader, goes back down for a couple of weeks, then comes back and fully joins the rotation. But as I mentioned, Rogers has a 1.44 ERA in those 9 starts. In that stretch, since May 24th, now this was as of Friday, only Paul Skeens had a lower ERA in Major League Baseball at 1.26 than Rogers did at 1.44. That is absurd what Trevor Rogers is doing. Just among starters with about 50 innings or more pitched, no one had been better than Rogers. But here's the thing. I put that stat together on Friday. Paul Skeens had kind of an iffy start on Saturday. Entering Sunday, Rogers, among pitchers who have thrown at least 50 big league innings, so that's, starters that have been in the rotation most of that time, nobody has a lower ERA since May 24th when he was called up than Rogers. At 1.44, Matthew Boyd 1.55, who dominated the Orioles this weekend, Tarek Skubal 1.67, Paul Skeens 1.69, Framber Valdez 1.77 are the top 5. There's not been a better pitcher ERA-wise than Trevor Rogers. And yes, the FIP is a little higher at 2.6, but it's still the 8th best FIP in that stretch. So it's not like he's getting all of this luck. It is a completely different pitcher out there for the Orioles. And he's also allowed the lowest batting average against him in that stretch. Like, if the Orioles were any good and they were in a playoff race right now, if you flipped their record at this moment and they were 61-51 instead of 51-61, if Rogers does this for the remainder of the 2 months, again, he's barely he's not even going to get to 20 starts. He might have gotten some Cy Young votes. I mean, that's how good he's pitching right now. It's an unbelievable 180. Rogers called it a 360 on Friday when talking to the media. Trevor, if it's a 360, you're back to what you were doing. It's a 180. But it's astounding what he is doing right now. Now, what went wrong? Well, Trevor Rogers was almost perfect. Cubs pitching was pretty much perfect. The Orioles did not score any runs in this game. And speaking of Paul Skeens, Rogers lived the Paul Skeens life. You dominate and you lose a game 1-0. You can imagine it was probably a rough day in that clubhouse, right? The day before, you get 6 of your big leaguers traded. You got to go out there for the first time. And so you get a little pass for having a tough offensive night. You don't have Laureano. You don't have Arias. You don't have O'Hearn. Your 2 best hitters this year, O'Hearn and Laureano, traded to the Padres. And the weather didn't help them either. The wind was blowing in like crazy at Wrigley, especially on Friday. Knocked down what looked like 2 potential home runs at different times off the bat of Tyler O'Neill, including a ball with 2 outs in the 9th that looked like off the bat it was going to be a 2-run homer to put the O's up 2-1 in the top of the 9th inning, and instead was caught at the wall for the final out. Couldn't believe that neither of those balls, as hard as they were hit, didn't get out, but the wind was just gusting in. But otherwise, there was really nothing going on in this one for the Orioles offense. I mean, Cade Horton, the rookie starter for the Cubs, gave them 5 strong scoreless innings. Then they got shut down by the bullpen. Our old friend Andrew Kittredge, after being traded to the Cubs on Thursday, gives Chicago a 1-2-3 inning in the 7th on Friday against the Orioles. And the O's had been red hot. They were coming into Friday averaging 9.4 runs per game in the final 7 games of July. And then they get shut out for the first time since before the All-Star break in this loss. Just not a lot going for the offense. But the shout out for Friday, the shout out goes to Jeremiah Jackson, who was one of the 4 position players who was called up to join the Orioles big league roster on Friday. Of course, they were out 4 position players, so had to replace him. So Jeremiah Jackson came up along with Terrin Vavra, Jordan Adams, and Luis Vasquez. All 3 had been up in the big leagues with the Orioles before, but for Jackson, it was his major league debut. Of course, the 4 of them replacing O'Hearn, Arias, Laureano, and Mullins, who were all traded at the deadline. Now, Vavra, I wrote this down in my notes on Friday. He's going to be a short-term guy. He already got DFA'd on Sunday, which we'll talk about. Jordan Adams, was coming in as a defensive replacement this weekend. Luis Vasquez has been kind of up and down with the roster this year. These are all, Vasquez might stick a little bit more. He has a chance to be the new Ramon Arias, but these are mostly short-term guys. The Orioles, they already did it. They claimed 3 players on waivers this weekend, 2 of them position players who might join the roster and get a chance to play. So these are just kind of placeholders. You need to fill roster spots and have warm bodies after the deadline when you trade away 6 big leaguers in the span of a day. But some of these guys are going to get a chance to stick. And, hopefully we'll see Dylan Beavers and then Samuel Basayo sometime soon. I know on Friday's episode, I talked about how Dylan Beavers and him crushing AAA. I mean, he had 2 more homers in Norfolk on Sunday, how he should absolutely be one of the guys that was called up. I didn't as much consider him in the camp of if the Orioles wait 2 more weeks, they can maintain Beavers' rookie eligibility for next year, giving him a chance to win Rookie of the Year and get the Orioles an extra draft pick. That's probably why he's not up now. Even as good as Dylan Beavers is, I don't really give him a great shot to win 2026 AL Rookie of the Year. But I guess if you're the Orioles, it's why not? We're not playing for anything down the stretch anyway, so might as well give us our best shot for 2026. So that's why he's not here, but he will be here. But I think for Jeremiah Jackson, he's the one of these 4 guys that were called up that's actually going to get some actual playing time that he deserves. And we saw that over the weekend. Jackson, Luis Vasquez did start 1 game, but that's only because Tyler O'Neill was a late scratch due to an illness. But Jackson was the only one of the 4 who was in an original starting lineup, and he started all 3 games at Wrigley this weekend. Former second-round pick, 25-year-old infielder, outfielder. Orioles signed him to a minor league deal this offseason, and in AAA, he was just balling, slashing it's a 377 average, 400 on base, 673 slugging, 11 homers, and a 181 WRC plus was the best among all qualified AAA hitters this season. 47% hard hit rate. Doesn't really walk, but doesn't really strike out either. Has 11 home runs. And, you think about the lineup from Friday. Your bench was those 3 other guys you called up, Adams, Vavra, and Vasquez, and then your backup catcher in Alex Jackson. Those are the 4 players on the bench, with Jeremiah Jackson hitting 9th. And right now, until Ryan Mountcastle comes back, which looks like it's probably going to be, he'll be activated and join the team in Philly today. But until that happened, Jeremiah Jackson was one of your best 9 hitters on the team. And so that's why he was in that lineup. And what did he do? He picked up his first big league hit, had a single at 102 off the bat in the 5th inning for his first knock. Cool moment for him. And you know what? Playing time is going to go down for him if Mountcastle is back. And then, if the Orioles do call up Beavers in a couple of weeks, there'll be less time for Jackson. But I think he's going to stick on this roster for the remainder of this season, or at least for a good chunk of it. We'll see what the Orioles want to do with some of these other waiver claims. But I think Jackson, what he showed in AAA, and the fact that he's still only 25 years old, I mean, he deserves a shot. Yes, he's a minor league signing, so you think, okay, is he really a prospect? What can you really get out of this guy? But on the flip side, you look at him, and he's younger than Heston Kjerstad, a guy who, you're back in AAA and have no idea what to do with him. There's a chance in the future he can be more of a prospect or more of a player or more of an impact player than a guy like Heston Kjerstad is. So I think worth it for him to get a shot. I don't think he'll play every day moving forward when Mountcastle and Beavers are here like he did this weekend, but a good chance for him to play this weekend. And although he didn't help the Orioles to a win on Friday, Jackson certainly did on Saturday, as the O's got an awesome comeback victory in the 8th. And I'll tell you how they did it coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape ginger and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. And let's be honest, some days on the course or off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. And you think about going on the golf course or maybe the mini golf course, whatever it may be. Maybe there was a tough Orioles loss and you need a little energy boost. Whatever it may be, 5-Hour Energy is there for you. And, for golf, it's about good times, good people, good flavors, of course. And the grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best part of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the Bev card. So if you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5, hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. The offer is only valid until September 30th on the order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. So whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion-flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. So the Orioles suffered a tough 1-0 loss on Friday, despite a great start from Trevor Rogers. And on Saturday, it looked like they were going to get shut out again. They hadn't scored through 7 innings. It looked like another loss. But then the Orioles rallied in the 8th inning and won this game by a score of 4-3 to even up the series at 1 game apiece. And I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from the Orioles' 4-3 win over the Cubs on Saturday. And the first thing you need to know is Gunnar Henderson came up with one of, if not the biggest swings of the year for him in 2025. Now, Gunnar has still been great this year, and he has still been swinging the bat incredibly well over the last 2 months. But, he started the season on the IL, and he started a little slow when he came off the injured list. And, it's a 128 WRC plus versus a 153 last year. He hasn't been an MVP level player like he was last season. He's still been great, just not the power hasn't been there, especially, and just not the same exact player. But on Saturday, we saw the player he is. Comes to the plate, 2 on, 2 out. Orioles trailing 3-1 in the top of the 8th inning, and he's facing a tough lefty in Caleb Thielbar, who had already struck him out when the two faced in Friday's game. But Gunnar, he was ready this time. Gets a hanging sweeper and crushes it into the right center field seats for a 3-run homer to flip the game and put the Orioles up 4-3 in the 8th. Gunnar hit that ball 110.7 miles per hour off the bat. It was his hardest hit home run of the year. And the 416 feet it traveled was his second longest home run of the year. He hit a 417-foot home run back on Tuesday. That one has the lead. And it came off what is a really good sweeper from a good left-handed reliever in Caleb Thielbar. He was with the Twins for a while, signed with the Cubs this year. And for Gunnar, he's got 13 homers this year. That was just the third of those 13 that has come off a left-handed pitcher. Really the biggest step back for Gunnar this year is he has kind of struggled again against lefties after just dominating them in 2024. But the 110.7, he hit that ball, third hardest hit ball of his career against a lefty. Listen, he was slugging 470 against lefties last year. This year, it was 302 entering Saturday. So it's just been a little bit different for Gunnar. And on the flip side, this is not something that happens to Caleb Thielbar. This is how special of a hitter Gunnar Henderson is. Just the second home run allowed this year to a left-handed hitter by Thielbar. And for Caleb Thielbar, he's been in the big leagues for a while. He has only once before Saturday had a left-handed hitter homer against his sweeper, and that one hitter was Yordan Alvarez, when healthy, one of the best hitters in Major League Baseball. Just the second hit he's allowed on the sweeper all season. Just a huge swing for Gunnar in a huge moment that gave a giant jolt to this Orioles team. And by win probability added, it was by far his biggest swing of the year. He had that pinch hit go-ahead 2-run homer in the 8th against the Mets about a month ago. He had that big home run in the 10th inning in Texas back in late June. But this added 59% to the Orioles winning probability in this game. That one swing by Gunnar, that homer off Ryan Stanek in the Mets, that was 48%. This was his biggest swing of the year. And it was just a cool moment for the Orioles to get up off the mat after not scoring for the first 16 innings of this series, and a big swing for Gunnar, who's just been unbelievable since the start of June. Second thing you need to know is that it woke up a sleepy Orioles offense, because they were certainly sleepy. No runs in the first 7 innings on Saturday. Matthew Boyd, who, as I mentioned, Trevor Rogers has the best ERA among starters since May 24th. Boyd now has the second best ERA among big league starters since May 24th. He was incredible in this game, just like he's been all year. 7 scoreless innings, 4 hits, 8 Ks, no walks. He's got a 2.34 ERA on the season. If you go back to my free agent wish list episodes, one of my wish list lefty starters for the Orioles was Matthew Boyd. He signed a fairly cheap contract to join the Cubs, and he has been an all-star and unbelievable. Wouldn't he be great in this Orioles rotation? But unfortunately, they did not go get him. He got a lot of swing and miss. He was awesome, but he was dominating the Orioles, and he was only at 92 pitches, and he had a 3-0 lead. But Craig Counsell goes to the bullpen in the 8th inning. He goes to Ryan Brazier, goes to Caleb Thielbar, and neither of those guys pitched too well. Jordan Westberg had an 0-2 2-out RBI single to keep the inning going, making it 3-1, and set up the next batter as Gunnar, who, of course, delivered with that 3-run homer. Third thing you need to know from this one is that Jeremiah Jackson had a multi-hit day. Really was the only guy who seemed to see Matthew Boyd even a little bit well. Now, only one of his 2 hits were against Boyd, but he had better at-bats. Again, got his first hit on Friday like we talked about. And then on Saturday, starts again, has a single in the 5th. Then he singles in the 8th inning to really get that Orioles 4-run rally going. And again, he started all 3 games this weekend, with Ryan Mountcastle probably returning today. At worst, at some point in this Phillies series, Mountcastle's probably going to be back. Mountcastle probably slots in and takes Jackson's spot as one of the 9 best hitters who is playing every day. Jackson, at worst, will kind of assume the Ramon Arias role as the utility guy on the bench. And I think he'll start just as much as Arias did. They want to get him in there because that bat played this weekend. He reached base in all 3 games. He had 3 hits. He looked comfortable up there. And I think you want to give him more of a shot, as I mentioned, down the stretch. Fourth thing you need to know from the Saturday win is that Tomoyuki Sugano was just kind of solid again. You know what? That is just so much better than when it was really bad for Sugano. It's been the season of 3 stretches for Sugano. It was the early stretch of the year, really good for 12 starts. Had a 3.04 ERA for the Orioles through his first 12 starts as a big leaguer. Then a disaster for 5 starts. Had an 8.87 ERA over those next 5 starts. Looked unusable, didn't look like a major league starter. It was the reason why the Orioles probably tried to, but weren't able to trade him at the deadline, despite him being a rental starting pitcher. And now he's just kind of been solid for the last 4 starts. Got a 4.35 ERA in the last 4 starts. He hasn't allowed more than 3 earned runs in any of those 4 outings. And if he can post a 4.35 ERA for the remainder of the season, that is fine with me. Like, that's around what the projections were for Sugano. That's what you would have taken out of him at this point in his career coming over from Japan. Like, I would take that, right? He's got a 4.42 ERA overall on the season. If he could finish with a 4.42, that's great. That's what you kind of expected to get out of Sugano. It's been a lot of peaks and valleys, but I'll take that to just eat some solid innings and provide some stability somewhat to this rotation. I mean, once again, he didn't miss many bats. 6 whiffs on 48 swings against Cubs hitters, but he got through it, right? His velocity was up across the board. Maybe that's something good. And I think the biggest thing was the command was back for Sugano, right? He had that pinpoint command in those first 12 starts, the command he had in Japan. That's why with below average stuff, he was posting a 3.04 ERA in 12 major league starts. Then the command went away from him, and he turned out to be terrible without it. But, he only walked 1 in this game on Saturday. His final line, 5 innings, 3 runs, 5 hits, 5 Ks, and 1 walk on 95 pitches. Only 1 walk. That was the first time in a month. First time since July 2nd that he had only walked 1 batter or less in a start. And his 54% in zone rate for all of his pitches, best in a start in 2 months. Best since June 8th that he had at least a 54% in zone rate. So that's a different Sugano. That's why he was able to be a little bit more effective. Got some help from the home plate umpire a couple of times. I won't lie about that, but we'll certainly take it to give the O's a chance to win this game. And the 5th and final thing you need to know from the Orioles' 4-3 win over the Cubs on Saturday is that Keegan Aiken came in a huge spot and got his first career 3-out save. Now, this Orioles bullpen looks a whole lot different after the deadline, but they came in after Sugano and threw 4 scoreless innings and gave the O's a chance to win. Now, Corbin Martin in the 6th and Grant Wolfram in the 7th both put up zeros. They both allowed multiple base runners, had to kind of grind through it, but got the 0. And then once the Orioles got the lead, Yennier Cano came in the 8th. And I was a little scared because the last time we saw Cano, he gave up 5 earned runs in 2/3 of an inning and kind of blew the game against the Blue Jays on Wednesday. But he came in, and that was vintage Cano. That was an easy 1-2-3 inning. He got a strikeout on some devastating, like old school Cano changeups against a left-handed hitter. And so in the ninth, three of the first five batters due up were lefties. Wolfram had already pitched. Keegan Aiken is one of your most veteran relievers and your best lefty. You've already used Cano. You've already used Martin. Tony Mansolino kind of goes to the best choice at that point. Keegan Aiken for the save with a one-run lead. Now, he had 3 career saves entering Saturday. One of them was last year. The Orioles had a 6-run lead in a game in New York in September. I believe it was the day after they had clinched the playoff spot against the Yankees. Matt Bowman came in, got 1 out, and allowed 4 runs. So Brandon Hyde went to Aiken in a 2-run game. He got the final 2 outs to get the save. And then his other 2 saves were in 2022, and those were in, the rule where if you pitch the final 3 innings of a win, no matter what the score is, you get a save. And his other 2 saves were both in 2022 when Aiken pitched the final 3 innings plus of blowout victories. And so he was recorded a save in both of those games. His only really true save was last year, but it wasn't 3 outs, it was only 2. So this was his first time, not first time getting a chance, but first time coming through in trying to get a 3-out save. He's gotten a couple of chances in extra inning games over the past couple of years and hasn't come up big. But this one he did it. And, he had a little bit of issues, right? He walked 2 batters, but he got it done against the lefties he needed to. Struck out Kyle Tucker and Pete Crow-Armstrong to finish the game, getting them both swinging on left changeups. Not something you see Aiken throw a lot against lefties. He really didn't throw his slider too much. He went more fastball changeup, got the huge K of PCA to end the game with 2 on and 2 out. And cool moment for Aiken, cool moment for the O's to find a way with that bullpen to win the game. And the Orioles, just like they were Friday, just like they were Saturday, they were locked into another tight game on Sunday. They tied it in the 9th, and then Keegan Aiken in a big spot, unfortunately this time, did not come through. I'll tell you about the Orioles' walk-off loss to finish off the series on Sunday coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Game Day Hue. For Orioles fans like me, this one hits the mark. Game Day Hue makes clean, no-logo gear with team-inspired colorways for every pro and college fan base. It's all about letting your colors speak for you. No giant logos, just smart, versatile style that works on game day, on the course, or anywhere in between. I've got 2 of the just orange and white hats, right? It doesn't have the O's logo on it, but you can wear it with the Orioles gear. You can wear it out, wear it to the golf course, wear it to the ballpark, whatever it may be. It doesn't replace my other Orioles gear, just adds to the lineup. And it's not just hats. Check out their split shade gloves made for the golf course, or the perfect gift for the fan who has everything. And right now, you can get 15% off with code MLB15 at GameDayHue.com. That's GameDayHue.com. The code even stacks on bundle deals, so now is the time to load up. Let your colors talk, because colors speak louder than words. That's GameDayHue.com, code MLB15. So the Orioles had the 1-run loss on Friday. They get the 1-run win on Saturday, and they were deadlocked in another tight one on Sunday. But unfortunately, they lose 5-3 on a walk-off, drop 2 of 3 to the Cubs, and the Orioles now sit 51-61 on the season as they head to Philly to play the Phillies today. Recap from Sunday, what went right? Well, Brandon Young did not allow an earned run in this one. Now, you got a caveat, because 2 runs did score against him in this game, but they were both unearned because Jeremiah Jackson, who we've been talking about a lot, got another start in right field on Sunday with Tyler O'Neill still out with illness. Mansolino said he expects O'Neill back in the lineup here on Monday. But Jackson, he is more of a regular infielder. That's what he kind of came up as, but he has made 47 career minor league starts in the outfield and has played all 3 positions, left, center, right field. So he's not, and he had started some games in the outfield in Norfolk before the Orioles called him up, kind of preparing him for this. So it's not like it's a foreign position. He's a better infielder than he is an outfielder, but he just dropped a fly ball, right? It's not ideal to have him out there, but I don't think it was a matter of like, oh, you're putting a guy out there who's never played the position, right? 47 starts is at least a little bit of a taste of that position where you can learn it. He was in the right spot. He did everything right, went for 2 hands, he just dropped it. It's unfortunately, even a big leaguer sometimes happens. And again, like, he was positioned right, and you could tell he's comfortable in the position because later in the inning, he played a ball perfectly off the ivy in right field, made a perfect throw to the cutoff man, and started an awesome Jackson to Jackson to Jackson relay to the plate to record the final out of the first inning at home and stop the Cubs from scoring another run. Jeremiah Jackson to Jackson Holliday to Alex Jackson. I believe it was the first ever Jackson relay. So that's kind of cool, but he looks somewhat comfortable out there. It was just a weird play. You know, all the other runs come in, that run scores, then another run scores with 2 outs. They end up being unearned. The final line for Young, it's 4 2/3 innings, 2 runs, but none of them earned on 5 hits, 4 Ks and 2 walks on 80 pitches for the Orioles rookie right-hander. But I thought, after that, he kind of locked in a little bit. Like, got a couple of strikeouts with the splitter. His fastball velocity was up again. He was 95 to 96 with good ride, getting 18 inches of IBB on average, which is nice to see. And I just think for Young, this wasn't his best start in the world, but he's putting up a 0 in the earned run column. And yeah, you'd like to have him pitch a little bit longer in the game. But for a rookie starter who's kind of learning things as he goes, to have his first start in the big leagues where he has a 0 in that earned run column, that is another positive step forward for Brandon Young. And honestly, I really do like, and it's easier to do when your team is out of it, but I really do like watching guys like this kind of learn and work through things at the big league level. And that is what we're seeing basically every single start. Brandon Young goes out there. Some things go right, some things go wrong. He improves, he makes adjustments. He's kind of dropped the changeup. He's just throwing the splitter, which is the better of the 2 pitches. Kind of always had a good changeup and then added a splitter this offseason. It's become better. He dumped his cutter for a while. Now he's brought it back. It has a different shape. It's got more movement and it's performing better. So he's throwing it more. Like, you can see him making these adjustments. He's getting more velo on the fastball. I former Locked On Orioles guest Brandon Young. Like, I like what I'm seeing from him, and he's gonna keep getting runway to keep working on it down the stretch. And he's got a chance to move himself into a rotation spot for next year. That's possible, and every start he makes this year is a step in that direction. Now, what went wrong in this one is that Keegan Aiken was unfortunately not clutch in the 9th inning in relief. Got that first 3-out save on Saturday, came into another huge spot in the 9th inning on Sunday. 3-3 game, bottom of the 9th. You got the lefties due up, so they go to Aiken. And he probably should have had 1 out. Dansby Swanson starts the inning reaching on a Jordan Westburg error on 2 pitches. And then on the first pitch to Justin Turner, center cut fastball as the pinch hitter, and the 41-year-old ageless Justin Turner, 2-run walk-off homer, and the Cubs win the game 5-3. It took Keegan Aiken 3 pitches for this game to be over. Doesn't take away from the good thing and the save he got on Saturday, but as I've said, with the current state of this bullpen after the deadline and the Felix Bautista injury, we're going to see some stuff like this too. But before Aiken pitched, we did see a couple of interesting relief appearances from the Orioles. Brandon Young came out of the game with runners on the corners and 2 outs in a 2-2 game in the bottom of the 5th, and the Orioles went to left-hander Dietrich Enns, who they got in a small trade with the Tigers after he was DFA'd on deadline day. And Enns came in and he struck out Pete Crow-Armstrong on a good fastball to escape the jam. He did scatter 5 hits and allow an earned run, but he struck out 3 and didn't walk anyone over an inning and 2/3 on 41 pitches. I thought he showed a good fastball with ride up to 96, kind of an interesting changeup from the left side. I kind of liked what I saw from him. And then Cade Stroud at his best big league outing, inning and 2/3 scoreless from Stroud, 1 strikeout, no walks. This is by far the best command we've seen from Stroud in a big league outing with the Orioles. So that's a good step forward for him. And that's a lot of what this bullpen work is going to be about in these final 2 months. The Orioles, with guys like Dietrich Enns and Cade Stroud and others, finding who's going to stick. They need to find a couple of these guys to stick, but every outing is important for these guys. And I saw some interesting things from those 2 on Sunday. And the shout out from Sunday's loss, it has to go to Ryan Noda. And if you were thinking before this game or even before listening to this episode, who the bleep is Ryan Noda? Not a bad thing, right? Like, don't blame me at all for that one. Noda, who the Orioles claimed off waivers from the White Sox on Saturday. He's a 29-year-old left-handed hitting kind of first base / corner outfielder who they got from the White Sox on Saturday. They then activated him to the roster on Sunday, and Terrin Vavra, who made 1 pitch hit appearance on Saturday and lined out, he was DFA'd to make room. And they're like, here, Ryan Noda, here's a big spot. 2 outs, top of the 9th inning, Orioles down 3-2. Colton Cowser, who had a leadoff double in the inning, still stuck on second against Daniel Palencia, who's been a great closer for the Cubs this year, throws 101. And they said, Ryan Noda, you're going to pinch hit for Alex Jackson as our final chance. And what does Ryan Noda do? He just comes off the bench. A guy who, mind you, with the White Sox this year, had 3 hits. Yes, with the Chicago White Sox, Ryan Noda had 3 total hits on the season. Now, it's not like he was playing every day and he had 3 hits and he was the worst player of all time. But 3 hits in 34 at-bats is not very good, especially when that includes 19 strikeouts in those 34 at-bats. Does have 10 walks in his 16 games with the White Sox. And he comes through. An RBI single into right field, got a hanging breaking ball, hit it 100 off the bat. Cowser scores to tie the game at 3. Then he ended up stealing second, getting himself in scoring position before Holiday popped out to end the inning and keep it 3-3. And a really cool moment for Noda. Like, who is Ryan Noda, right? He'd been in AAA this season mostly. He's been with the Red Sox, the Angels, and the White Sox in AAA. 103 WRC plus. It's a 194 average, but it's a 390 on base percentage, has 8 homers, got a 20% walk rate, but a 32% strikeout rate. Basically, is a 3 true outcomes guy. Has a great batting eye, has a lot of swing and miss, has a lot of power, but does not hit for average. He's bounced around from the Blue Jays to the Dodgers. He was a Rule 5 pick from the A's a couple of years ago, and he was great. He was the A's starting first baseman in 2023 as a Rule 5 player, had a 122 WRC plus in his rookie season in the big leagues, sustaining it with a 45% hard hit rate, a 13% barrel rate. It looked like it was all sustainable for Noda. Then the swing and miss came. He fell apart, had an awful season last year in Oakland, and that was kind of that. He was waived in the offseason, bounced around AAA, but he does have minor league options for this year and for next year. And the Orioles had plenty of open 40-man spots. That's why they made a move like this. And I thought he was going to be depth in AAA, but then the Orioles called him right back up. Now, there's a pretty good chance that if Ryan Mountcastle does get activated today, Noda will get optioned right down to Norfolk. So we'll get that one pinch hit single in the 9th inning and then have to wait for his next turn. Which is another piece of depth the Orioles are going to bring in to see what they can do with these guys with these open roster spots down the stretch. And they made 2 more of those waiver claims on Sunday. Vidal Brujan and Carson Ragsdale are coming over to the Orioles. We'll talk about them on tomorrow's episode. We'll also recap game 1 between the Orioles and the Phillies. That is what's up next for the O's. It does not get any easier coming up. They played one of the best teams in the National League in the Cubs. They lost 2 of 3. Now they play another one of the best teams in the National League, the Phillies, at 63-48. Jesus Luzardo, the lefty who was looking like a Cy Young Award winner early in the year after the Phillies traded for him, he's been really struggling lately, although he bounced back with 7 scoreless against the White Sox in his last start. We'll see if the O's can get to him. And Cade Povich returns to the mound for the Orioles, has not pitched in the big league since June 15th with that hip issue. He's going to be activated off the IL to start today. And I'll be back tomorrow recapping everything you need to know from game 1 between the O's and the Phils, talk about Povich's start. We'll talk about the roster moves the O's have made and much more. But until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.